Hello and welcome back to the Wellness Wisdom Volume 2 series. I'm your host, Raisa of APSO, and today we're going to be talking about why mental health fitness is the new physical health with one of our authors who is a certified health wellness coach, Jeffrey Berger. Let's welcome him on. Hello, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, Reese. So thanks for having me on today.
Thank you
It's good to
so
be
much
here.
for joining. Woohoo! I love that. Thank you for joining me here today. So Jeffrey, one of the very first things that we always do on our APSO show and any interview show is always to ask, "Who are you and what do you do?"
Gee, who am I? So I am Jeff Berger. I live in Cape Coral, Florida. I'm a transplant from Buffalo, New York.
Mhm.
And I was a software engineer for 27 years. I left corporate America in 2015, August 15th, actually, because of total burnout. And I actually was looking for something that was going to give my life more meaning, number one, and number two, address my health condition, because my health condition back then was not very good. And today I am 4 to 5 years later. Well, no, now it's 6 years later. I am living in abundance and optimum wellness, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially, through my business of sharing what is really happening out there in the world and why so many people are sick. And I believe that mental fitness is the new physical health today.
Wow, that is amazing. And so I think you've kind of started with your story. So let's dissect that story a little bit further. You're talking about you were in the corporate world and you experienced burnout. How did you get to burnout? I feel like this is an obvious answer, but I still want to hear it.
Sure. So the burnout in corporate America was, in the software industry, it is a very high pressured industry. And we are under the constraints of project management and
Mhm.
projects being not really represented in a proper scale perspective, and which impacts our daily life from a work perspective, because they're basically, my experience has been, there's been no work life balance. And we were expected to show up on weekends. We were expected to work late nights. We were expected to put all in with very little return.
Mm,
And with that, and I was a manager, if you will, a quality assurance advisor, and I was managing teams in India. I was managing teams here in the United States, and having multiple projects, up to managing 13 projects. So that can place a wear and tear onto your body physically and mentally. So it really got to the point where I actually had to be out on disability the last five to 6 months of my professional career.
wow.
And actually, it was the day, literally the day, in the book here, the day that I went back to work. I was driving to work, and my anxiety, my stress went up. It skyrocketed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so wrong.
Mm,
And it was that day when I walked into the office, I decided I can't do this anymore. I need to get out of this toxic and hostile environment.
mhm.
And so I walked into my boss's office and said, "Today is the day. I'm no longer going to be working for a company that is fosters non um, work life balance,
Right.
as well as a hostile work environment." And I said,
Mm,
effectively, immediately, I resigned. And she said, "You can't do that." I said, "Why?" She said, "You need to give 2 weeks notice." I said, "No, I don't. I resigned today." So I went
mm,
back to my desk, and I was shaking. I'm like, "Oh my God, I've
yeah.
never done that before." But made the decision, this job is not worth my health, because it was deteriorating. So I went back to my desk, gathered my things, said my goodbyes, and went off. And here I am today, and I'm
Mm.
doing fantastic.
Oh, you look fantastic too. I see you got the shirt on and the sun. Like you're just enjoying it, and that's really, really good. The and again, thank you for sharing your story about that. I love the whole "I quit now, I resign now." I think that's very powerful and, like, super brave. You mentioned that part of what you're saying is in the book, and that's, like, our wellness wisdom too. So, can I ask, like, why'd you decide to write the chapter?
So I really wanted to share my story. Uh,
Mhm.
Over the last couple of years, since I first got a certification as a integrated health and wellness coach, but then a year and a half later, this opportunity to become certified as a holistic wellness coach, a holistic mental wellness coach, with a focus on the microbiome, was right up my alley because that's exactly what I'm doing. Uh, Getting the stories out is getting the information out to people who may be in the same situation that I was. I suffered decades of stress, anxiety, depression because I was always a people pleaser. I wanted to please my bosses, I wanted to do the best that I could. And no matter how hard you please, it's not good enough. And it took a toll on my health, and sharing one's story is how people uh, will understand what other people have experienced along with them, and it may hopefully give them the courage to step out of their comfort zone to getting some help. Okay, I left a six-figure job and left with nothing, in the forefront at that particular point. But I believe that my health was more important at that time. So that's why I wrote was co-author with this book here, because my message is so strong. I am also, you and those who will read the book, I am a survivor of childhood molestation, of
Mhm.
chemical dependency, and two attempted suicides in earlier in my life. And that's all part of my journey, which was shoved under the carpet because I was brought up men don't have feelings, men don't cry, men don't this, men don't that. So my whole decades of life was build a bridge and get over it and man up. Well, you know what? We do have feelings, we do cry, we do have emotions, and we need to speak up more about it because more men commit suicide than women because of mental health issues.
Mm. Thank you, Jeff. And let's dive more into that as well in terms of that kind of mental health and that fitness, and also men's mental health as well, because as you said, it is part of your story. And before we get into that, we do have some guests on here joining us. Hello, hello. We have
Hello there.
Leticia. Hi. We have Shaniza who's saying good night, but I think I'll join you in also saying having a good night as well, because we're all in different time zones
Sure.
watching this. Um, but yeah, thank you guys so much
Welcome.
for joining. If you have any questions for Jeff, please feel free to comment, share this video, and share this very important message that he is talking about right now. So, Jeff, again, let's kind of dive in. Oh, she says hi now. So, hi. Awesome. So, Jeff, again, let's dive into this. We're talking about men's mental health. We're talking about mental fitness, and your chapter is about mental fitness and why it's more important than physical health. Again, what's the reason for that?
Sure, that's a great question. And what I have come to discover in my research, in my studies, my certification, and talking with people who are very passionate about mental health, mental fitness, we talk about the microbiome. And this is what
Mhm.
I'm all about. The microbiome, for those that don't know, is the gut brain heart axis health. And this is a science that's disrupting the health and wellness industry today, especially when it comes to mental health. And we go back to Hippocrates. He was the first Greek philosopher, Greek doctor, medical doctor who documented all disease starts in the gut. And this is what science is proving today. We're at a point where technologically we are so far advanced, we're able to get down to really finite research. And the microbiome project that started in 2006 are now coming out with their clinical studies, their research in medical journals and scientific journals about the connection between the gut, the brain, and the heart because they all talk to each other. And in my
Oh,
free workshops, I state that the gut is really the mainframe. It's the communication center for your entire. I call this the body temple. And so, with that, in order to have mental fitness, is the new physical health, you have to focus on your gut health because unfortunately, today, we are living in a world where our foods do not have the nutrients that are necessary for us to be thriving. How many people are tired all the time? How many people are stressed out? How many people are anxious, and or depressed, or even having suicidal thoughts? In my discoveries, I have been able to do the research to find out that pretty much, well, let me say this first. There are over 10,000 chemical preservatives in our foods today. And I researched the 25 of them, and all of them, a side effect is stress, anxiety, depression, and it eats away at your gut. So when you start breaking down the gut barrier, because our gut lining is only one cell layer thick, once you break that down, then the stuff that's in your gut leaks into your bloodstream and you start getting dysbiosis. And then that opens up Pandora's box to a plethora of other diseases out there. And we look at what's going on today, and it's all about the foods, it's all about the pharmaceuticals. I don't take away pharmaceuticals 100%. There is a time and a place for them. Hey,
gotcha.
I'm the first one to raise my hand to say, give me the morphine when I'm passing a kidney stone.
Right.
But me having reversed my type 2 diabetes and getting off of 5 medications that ended from type 2 diabetes, heart disease, stress, anxiety, so forth and so on, statins. I came off of them learning about the proper foods to eat as well as supplementation. We unfortunately have to take supplementation today because our foods are so tainted with the chemicals that are out there in the farmlands. And the primary culprit is glyphosate, which is a product, or which is a chemical in Roundup, which is a product that is manufactured by Monsanto to spray the fields, the cornfields, the soy fields, the wheat fields, with this pesticide to ward off insects. But whatever the insects didn't eat, those that were killed, who ate that food, were consuming that food.
Hmm.
It's just now 30, 40 years later because they patented this in 1974 as an antibiotic, this glyphosate chemical, man-made chemical, as an antibiotic. And that's what they injected into the genes of corn and soy. And we know that corn and soy is a huge food filler today. Now they're discovering glyphosate has been causing cancer. And this is relatively new. I want to say in the last 5 to 6 months, I've been seeing articles all over the place about glyphosate. So it's really about educating the consumer about what's out there, what they should be looking for, especially for their kids. We wonder why there are so many diseases that are out there today,
Hmm.
especially with our children. Not even especially with our children, with everybody. Because
Yeah.
when I moved down to Florida, I'm from Buffalo, New York. I grew up learning that Florida is God's waiting room. When I got down here 4 or 5 years ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, most of these people are in the waiting rooms of doctors and they're not enjoying their retirement.
Wow.
So that's what kind of really woke me up to a realization that there's something serious going on here. And that's around the time I was introduced to the holistic world, which opened up Pandora's box that
Mhm.
really gave me some insight because my own health was declining because of my type 2 diabetes. And
Right.
I do have a couple of facts here that I did actually pull up and I wanted to share with people today.
Mhm.
We talk about gut health is so related to mental health in many ways, and we're in a world where we are being bombarded with foods that have no nutrition and are bioengineered. So, genetically modified foods are known as genetically engineered foods or
Mhm.
bioengineered foods, are foods produced from organisms that have had changes introduced into their DNA using methods of genetic engineering. And according to the national, and this is where I get on a little bit of a rant about make sure you get your information and double check it. According to the National Academy of Sciences and the FDA, bioengineered foods are safe to eat and pose no risk to your health. The NBFDL and the USDA's regulations require all foods and ingredients that have been modified DNA to make a disclosure using one of their four methods of the food manufacturing choices. And so that's where I say there's over 10,000 chemicals that are in our man-made, or man-made chemicals that are in our foods today. And, hey, I was there. I believed my doctors. I believed the FDA, but reality kicked in when my doctor wanted to put me on a sixth medication. And I said, why? You're,
Wow.
you're having problems from the other five medications. I'm like, okay, so who's to say
I
that the sixth one is not going to cause problems down the road? That'll have to get me
Mhm.
up to a seventh. So I said, no, you are leading me down the path as my father. Type 2 diabetic, heart disease, leg amputation, and when he died with 12 medications as a result of the complications from type 2 diabetes. I want to end that cycle because she told me the only way I could manage my type 2 diabetes is through medication. So I said, absolutely not. When I got introduced to this microbiome product line that focuses on the gut health, I was skeptical, but I said to myself, I've got nothing to lose. I can evaluate it. So I evaluated it, jumped on board. 9 months later, I lost 60 pounds. I came off of the five medications. I reversed my type 2 diabetes, which is basically getting my A1C, which is a blood indicator saying you are diabetic or you're pre diabetic or non diabetic. I was
Mhm.
diabetic. I was up in the 12s and I got it down to a five. You have to get down below a 5.5, and I got it down to 5.3, non diabetic. And I had reduced decades of stress, anxiety, and depression that was at a 10 plus down to a level one with absolutely no depression in the last 3 years. You cannot
Wow.
put a price tag on that kind of health. And it's people are just barely surviving today. Why? Because my belief in the studies and the research that I've done, as well as talking to industry experts, it's because of the food system as well as the FDA. Well, that is the food system, the Food and Drug Administration.
Right.
Companies make the food with the chemical preservatives that disrupt our gut, that cause disease, which then in turn get you over to the pharmaceuticals, and they get you onto the pharmaceuticals, and then they just keep feeding you pharmaceutical after pharmaceutical, and that's a vicious cycle. And this is my opinion. Some people disagree with me. That's
Mhm.
okay. You can have your opinion, but I have my opinion. I lived through almost getting close to death, and I
Right.
did not want to end that way. I'm 68 years old. I feel like I'm in my 30s, and I want other people to feel the same way, and they can do it by getting out of the broken systems that we're in today. So,
Mhm.
there you have it.
Whoa. Wow, Jeff. Absolute gold. I think your story, your facts, your analysis on this food chain, as well in this toxic food cycle, is just blowing our minds right now. People are saying, wow, wow, 100%, so true. Congratulations on discussing such an important topic. Flowers, hearts, prayer hands. Kath says, exactly, Jeff Berger. What I've been fighting with those broken systems. Exactly. Shaniza says, congratulations, looking great. Hey, hey, he's 30 years old, everybody. And and Shaniza says, good information. Not even good information. This is great information. But now that we know this information, right? Oh, Kath says he is. Woohoo. Good.
Kath, let me just share this real
Awesome.
quick. Kath is a registered nurse, and she left
Mm.
her job because she was not liking the way the industry was going. And Mary Long is actually a naturopathic doctor, so I know
Hmm.
both of those ladies.
Ah,
You-
very interesting. Well,
Yes.
thank you, ladies, for joining and listening to Jeff as well. So, Jeff, again, this is great information. And as we talk, diving deep into the gut biome now, we know there's over 10,000 preservatives. It's destroying the lining of our gut. How do we recover that? What kind of foods do we have to do to protect our gut biome and in turn our mental health? Because I know it's in Canada as well. That's where I'm, and there's a new epidemic, and that's the mental health
Hmm.
epidemic, right?
Exactly.
I don't know the exact stats, but they're saying by 2024, like a very big portion of the Canadian population will have had and actively are having mental health issues and mental illness. So how do we combat that, especially when we have this toxic food cycle as to, what you're saying right now?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and Raisa. So there's a lot of different thoughts about it, but what I recommend, and when I'm talking to people is, and people who are, no matter where you are today, you can always improve. You don't have to go back and do a complete
Mm,
reset or whatever. Um, you can start making small incremental changes. And
mhm,
that's the key. It's small incremental changes because most people like me, I'm the baby boomer, and we've been destroying our guts for decades. And we've been following the SAD, the Standard American Diet, which is very SAD. Told that these foods are great for us, and
mhm,
when we're finding out that children's cereals, the cereals that I used to eat have glyphosate, and there's a certain percentage allowed by the FDA that glyphosate is on these foods. I'm like, it shouldn't even be on there. But in any event, small baby steps, and it is a lifestyle change for most people, especially in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and on up. And it's really becoming informed, becoming educated about what's really out there. What
right.
I'm doing is, just sharing with people. If you look, whatever's in a box and
Okay.
it's got the cellophane stuff over it, and it's you can, eat by December 20th, 2025.
Right.
You there's no nutrition in that.
Mm,
Okay, so look at the boxes, look at the cans, and look at the jars, the glass jars, uh,
mhm,
and read the labels. If you can't pronounce a word on those labels, then don't buy it, because what they're doing now is taking the old um, chemical names and just changing them a little bit to make them a little bit more easier to read or whatever. The idea is we want to eat whole foods because food is medicine. Foods, and plants. Plants were put here for a reason. They
mhm,
have beautiful attributes. And so wherever you are, you can change. However, for those that are really, really serious about taking control of their health, I recommend taking a wellness assessment. See where you are today. What's going on physically? What's going on mentally? And from that, then I get on the phone with them or get on a Zoom call. We go over that assessment and really talk and do deep dive of what's been going on in your life the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whoever I'm talking to, and kind
right.
of get to the root of what's going on. Because unfortunately, today, when you go into the doctor's office and there's a problem, what's the first thing
Mhm,
they do? They run to the green book or the blue book and open it up and say, "Oh, well, you need to try this drug."
okay.
All right. So, well, wait a minute. Why try a drug? Why can't we address it from another level? Why can't we go with something holistic? Why can't we go with something that is a little bit more safe? Because what are what are the side effects of those drugs?
Mhm,
Oh, well, they can, have an impact on your gut, and they may give you heart palpitations, and they can do this and they can do that. Oh, by the way, it may cause death.
right.
Well, do I really want to try something like that?
Mhm,
But to be honest, when I was diagnosed diabetic, I was put on metformin and the statins and all that, which do have major impacts on your body.
Mhm.
So the idea is getting to the root, and doctors don't get to the root because they've never been taught about nutrition. uh,
Mhm.
Very, very little. And nutrition, we didn't have pharmaceuticals, before the, well, we had some pharmaceuticals in the 1800s. The pharmaceutical industry formed in, I think it was 1906, and then it just took off from there. But before, there were no pharmaceuticals, man-made pharmaceuticals, and
Yes.
they survived from that perspective. And then we basically just go through a program. I have a program where it's living a GBX lifestyle. And when I say lifestyle, it's a lifestyle change, it's a permanent change. You
What's GBX? Sorry.
can't, yeah, great question. GBX is gut brain access.
Gut brain access. Okay.
GBX, gut brain access. And through this program, I teach people about the significance our microbiome has on our body temple. You
Mm.
know, and when you incorporate these man-made chemicals in the foods that we're eating, as I said earlier, it
Right.
goes into dysbiosis. It breaks it down. I look at our body temple as a beautiful symphony because our organs, our instruments,
Mhm.
and as well as the systems. But and you think about this, our gut is known as the sensing brain, and it's about the gut feelings, the instinct, intuition, learning from internal judgment. Then we go to the head, the thinking brain, logical, analytical, rational, theoretical. And then we've got the heart, which is the feeling brain, emotional, artistic, passionate, and visionary. And when they're working together, they build a beautiful symphony. However, when you
Of course.
introduce these foods, that breaks down that symphony to being
Yeah.
disastrous, production. And that's the way I kind of let people know this is what these foods are doing is they're breaking that symphony and they're shutting down different systems, impacting different systems, so forth and so on. So because
Wow.
we produce our own chemicals. God made the human body, and when it's working properly, we produce our own chemicals because we're made of cells, we're made of microbiota, we have little critters in our body, and viruses, along with the organs and systems and stuff like that, that all work synergistically together. And they're supposed to be that way. But it's been disrupted over the last, what,
Course.
100
Yeah.
years.
And it's like what you're saying about the nutrition as well, where we have to have ample amounts of these whole foods just so that we get the same nutritional value out of, say, one vegetable that we have to continuously keep eating just to get that kind of value and then have supplements right on top of it. And so as we're also you are in the States, right? And I guess for as we're because of COVID and stuff, the prices of food have been rising, especially organic and whole foods. And so, what we're seeing now is a lot of people are going to buy cheaper foods because it's what can be afforded right now. What are some superfoods that we can invest in at the moment just so that we're taking those small incremental steps? What's on Jeff's grocery list?
So what's on Jeff's grocery list is primarily what's on the outside of the store, and
Okay.
which is your fruits and vegetables. And if you're going to be doing protein such as meat or fish, it's wild fish, not farm fish, because they pump them with steroids and chemicals and antibiotics. It is organic chicken and grass-fed beef if you are those types of eaters. And then looking at plants, we've got, dandelion, and you've got all these different types of plants that grow. And there's a lot of research out there in regards to the benefit, and I'm talking about magnolia bark, ashwagandha, rafuma, kana. These are all plants that have attributes that aid in, mental acuity. It helps reduce your cortisol levels. It helps reduce those indices on stress, anxiety, and depression.
Mhm.
It also helps repair the gut. Specific, probiotics. You look at probiotics, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha. These are all amazing, amazing foods that our body is craving for. And those are the healthy foods that we should be looking at. We've got to get away from fast foods and
Masters. Okay.
all those fast food restaurants and processed foods, the bioengineered foods that are out there today, that is really running rampant out there, and
Mhm.
getting more to a plant-based perspective, if you will.
Okay.
Not eliminating meats, because I like my meat every once in a while, but it's not an everyday occurrence. And
Mhm.
really focusing on what really makes you healthy, and looking at the attributes that are in each of these individual elements, whether it's fruits and vegetables, plants, and those types of meats. And just getting educated about what's really out there. You know what, Raisa, I followed what everybody else was following.
Right.
But fortunately, I got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired and going to my doctor saying, "Why am I feeling so crappy? I'm always tired. I'm stressed out. Um, and I just sometimes I don't want to get out of bed, and this and that." And it's a result from the type 2 diabetes, which is all food related. It is
Oh.
Type 2 diabetes is all about food. And it's the chemicals that are in our foods that raise and spike our sugar levels that causes diabetes. And I learned this after the fact, because when my doctor wanted to put me on the sixth medication, I said, there's got to be another way. I went home and started doing some research, and I found articles about how do you reverse type 2 diabetes? They're out there. But why aren't the doctors sharing that with us? Because they
Mm.
want to put us on medication.
Mm. Controversial, Jeff.
Oh,
What are you bringing on here?
and let me say this. Let me say this.
Mm.
When I came off of my five pharmaceuticals, my doctor 3 months later had kicked me out of her office.
Oh, wow.
So we know what that's all about. That's another story.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But we have it's another story that someone can relate to as well. And
Yes.
someone in our audience relates to it as well. It says PDR, the doctor's Bible. I'm so great I was able to save my life with all natural remedy products. And you know, yeah, kudos. She said, I did a test to figure out my microbiome. Gut pretty surprised that it was good for me, and I changed my eating habits. I'm feeling healthy, and I'm remission for my lupus along with my natural products. So here we have someone through their natural remedy products, similar to your story, reversing lupus, getting off of medication because of like taking care of the gut biome, resetting it, and going full circle into this. Okay, this is how we're actually supposed to live. Oh, she says, I am BB says I am medication free from 21.
BB, oh, congratulations. That is like amazing. My father passed with 12 medications in 2005, and then my mother passed last year with 27 medications a day.
27 a
Yeah.
day?
It was, oh my gosh, it was just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So
Insane.
congratulations, BB. That's awesome. And these are the stories that we need to share with people who
Mhm.
are, as I said, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they want to get better, but they're
Yeah,
looking for solutions. And unfortunately, and I don't know, well, Canada, you have a free medical system. Down here in the
or
States,
frozen.
we have to pay for it.
Yeah.
All right. And it's very, very costly.
Mhm.
However, we have health insurance, and health insurance will pay, for your medications, a certain portion of it, then you're covered to the rest of it, you know. And
Right.
we would look at instead of managing illness, we're managing wellness. What can the individual do to be preventative in developing any of these diseases?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the key. And this is where true health and wellness stems from, because the systems today, it's a vicious gerbil wheel cycling day after day after day. And oh, if this doesn't work, well, let's try that one. If this
Yeah.
doesn't work, let's try that one. I have a nephew who is twin nephews. One
Mm-hmm.
is out of his 11th heroin addiction rehab. After a month, he gets thrown back out onto the street. There's no proper follow up with that. And then his brother is bipolar and has suicidal tendencies, and they his path was going through like 18 different medications.
Wow.
Both of their doctors said you need to work on your gut health.
Oh my God. So the doctor said that he has to work on the gut health.
Yes. but
Wow.
but their family, and we know what happens with family.
Mm.
Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. That's okay.
Sometimes, like, it's definitely hard to have those conversations as well. Um, Jeff, I'm gonna take this and thank you again for sharing that too. I'm gonna I want to lighten this up just a little bit,
Sure.
just in a way. I want to see what in the chat for those who are still watching with us. What do you think Jeff's favorite meal is? I want to give them a second. What do you think Jeff's favorite meal is? And Jeff, as we're as people are putting their answers in too, I would just kind of ask, your book is like your title, the chapter is from 90 days of from burnout to vigor, right? How
Correct.
do you have a conversation with somebody of getting them to vigor or convincing them that, the GBX, the gut biome, I forget what the X is.
Access, gut
The
brain access.
the gut biome axis is that kind of alternative.
Sure. So everybody's situation is different. The ideal is most people I'm working with can get to vigor in 90 days or less. And vigor is really when you talk about burnout, burnout is, we know what burnout is. All
Right.
right. And vigor is the opposite of burnout. And that vigor, we talk about psychological vigor, and psychological vigor is broken down into three entities, which is number one is having more physical energy. Number
Mhm.
two is improved mental acuity, reducing that brain fog, reducing stress, reducing anxiety, and having your brain be filled with neurotropics to feed the brain in what it is really looking for to do what it's supposed to do. And then the last is having enhanced emotional feelings. People are emotionally drained. And when you start introducing holistic protocols, and if they follow the program, they're going to get some decent results relatively quickly. Now, with that being said, that's your maybe your typical person who is generally on a fairly decent track. But if somebody
Mhm.
is out, if they're smoking and they're drinking and they're 100 pounds overweight and they're on 5 pharmaceuticals and they're eating fast foods 3 or 4 times a week, that is not going to happen in 90 days. It took me 9 months. It took
Correct.
me 9 months to do that. But if they're willing to do that, as I said earlier, it's a lifestyle change. What can you change that you're doing today that is impacting your health from a physical, mental, and an emotional perspective? Because once you start feeding your body temple, it will come to a point where you're going to notice some major differences. And what's really interesting is I was on a call the other day and with the chief science officer,
Mhm.
Dr. Sean Talbot, and the question was asked. Well, somebody had said, "Well, I don't think that these products are really doing what they say that they're doing." And he said, "Okay, well, that's a fair statement. So, well, then why don't we do this? Why don't you come off of them for a week?" All right,
Mm.
and it brought me back to the ninth month. in 2019 when I stopped the products. All right. Because I said, oh, I'm not diabetic and I've lost the weight and I feel fabulous and I'm all this and I'm all that. So I thought, I don't need to do these anymore. Well, come to a big surprise, this is all food, it's plants. I'm
Mm, yeah.
feeding my body, specifically targeting the neurotransmitters in our gut to communicate with the brain and the heart. And when I came off of them, I started to feel lousy. I started to get more stressed out. I started to gain a little bit more weight, even though I was still watching what I was eating. The idea here is that so when you stop these products, you kind of revert back, and you're not feeding your body, which is so thriving for these nutrients, and that's
Right.
what they are. They're nutrients that feed the gut and feed the brain and the heart as well. And yeah, so that's really a very key point because we have to eat, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
what I did is I decided I'm going to modify my food regimen on a daily, monthly basis, and I
Hmm.
incorporated this into my budget to continue thriving. And it's the best decision that I've ever made.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. So much this is really great. If those who are watching, if you're loving this, send some hearts, send some likes, and of course comment if you have any questions as well. We're both here to answer that. Well, Jeff is the expert. So Jeff, if you have some time, we'll hear it. And back to our previous question, we have one guess. Jeff, is your favorite meal lunch?
Oh, BB. So really, dinner is my favorite meal.
Dinner's your favorite meal, and what do you like to eat at dinner?
So dinner is generally a salad,
Mhm.
and I eat a lot of, you know, vegetables and lettuce. All green. I'm going to say the rainbow of salads. Okay. And
Okay.
on top of that, I will either do organic chicken, wild salmon. Every once in a great while, I've got to have my hot Italian sausage. So that goes in maybe twice a month just to kind of bring up some variety of that. And then, it's with, apricots and raisins and nuts and, all the essential, um, the fats and the carbohydrates and the proteins and the fruits and vegetables. So that's a really good healthy meal for me, and that's why I love dinner. My lunch, I fast. I do
Mhm.
a fasting in the morning, so I don't eat anything, and intermittent fasting, and then for lunch I do my protein shake.
Mm.
I do my protein shake with all of my supplementation, and that is a power packed lunch for me. And then I get to you know finish it off with the great salad at the end of the day.
Ah, love that. Oh my gosh. You know why I asked, right? I asked because I'm secretly writing it down. This is recorded. So,
You can go
haha,
back to the recording.
gonna try exactly, gonna try it out. We'll clip it and put it together from the man himself. So, Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us here on our show of the Wellness Wisdom Volume 2 series. Your book is now out, so let's give you a hand because congratulations, you are now a co-author and author of
You.
this book. For our guests here, I'm going to put the link to Jeff's book here, and you can also check it out. You can pre order the book right now and read Jeff's chapter from 90 days from burnout to vigor in 90 days or less. So, thank you so much again, Jeff. We have congratulations, we have claps from our audience here.
You.
Amazing information, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation.
Thank you for taking your time, Maurice. It was great, great conversation, and I enjoyed
Yeah.
it thoroughly.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much. And thank you to our audience. This has been presented by APSO, awesome people shaping our world. Remember, you're awesome and you can make the world a better place. Bye.